and hello to everyone listening to us. Welcome to the next episode of Seedhi Baat. Today we have with us a very special guest from Nigeria, Emmanuel Nwanja, who is going to speak about impact beyond knowledge and skills. So let's welcome him without any delay. Emmanuel is a package full of talent, and we know that from his introduction. The first question that I would like to ask him is how is he liking this union of India and Nigeria? What's his viewpoint about both the countries meeting through youth, and why did he choose this particular topic for today's podcast?
Okay, I actually love this question, and I am glad to be connected to Indians, the Indian youths. I've come in contact with a lot of promising youths from the country. I have a lot of friends there. Basically, we've only met online, and they've shown me a lot of capacity, potential, and futuristic thinking for the growth of the society and the world at large. So I took interest in this program when I found out that it was organized by an Indian or Indians, and they sounded very much enthusiastic about changing the world, and I also want to change the world. And now I chose the topic impact beyond knowledge and skills because I've noticed over time that most of us youths now, we are more interested in gathering knowledge and showcasing skills just for the show of it. We've actually forgotten the essence of education, what it means to be educated, and we're now focused on schooling more than we should focus on education. So I choose to talk about impact because that is what we need now in our world. We need impact. We don't need more people with excessive knowledge. We need people who impact with their knowledge. So that's why I'm here. Thank you.
Thanks a lot for this beautiful answer, and we are really looking forward to work with you. All of us work together and bring a change in this world. So you being a very active youth leader, I'm sure you must be knowing that there are so many education platforms these days available for the youth to learn. We have abundant platforms for taking knowledge and for skill development as well. But there is still a gap between how we are taking that knowledge and how it should be taken. So what's your vision about this gap, and how do you think we can fill this gap in the coming days?
Okay, as a youth leader, I will use my experience to answer this question. My personal experience has been that of change, where we switch from the actual text format in Africa, what we do here, a lot of notes and the rest, to my experience with online education. I tend to understand more or better their online educations that have to do with a lot of video tutorials and the rest of them. Now, I've come to understand that people keep or they understand more when it is visual, when it can connect to an image. So I think our educational pattern should change because we see a lot of entertainment don't come, most of them don't come, they don't interest us in text formats and audio formats. We get more interest when they are visual. So I think education should actually go into that light as well. It doesn't just end in the classroom. We should have visual representations for most of our activities so we get the best out of our students. We actually expand the mind of people who are willing to learn, and I believe that's where we can get our youth back on track. We can entertain them with education instead of unnecessary entertainment. Now, education, a lot of platforms, yes, but then we have a lot of knowledgeable youths. That, no doubt about that. We have a lot of intelligent youths around, but the world is still not at its best. The question is why, and I believe we're going to answer that by the end of the program. So I guess that's it. Thank you.
Hello, namaste, and a warm welcome to Seedhi Baat, Emmanuel. This is Pavan, the co-host of Seedhi Baat. It's a very interesting thing to hear that you have friends from India. I hope you have been to India sometime. If not, We hope you get a chance to visit our country soon. You have given us a broad perspective as to why you want to talk about this issue, and so let us start off with the first one. So you have given us a picture as to why we should acquire skills and the importance of skills and using the skills to create impact. So the first issue I'd like to ask you about is why we acquire skills and why we should acquire skills. You can put out your thoughts on it.
There's a saying that goes, you can't give what you don't have. Um, we study some of these principles because there are people before us who discovered these principles. Now, we innovate based on principles already existing. We don't just get them out of magic. That is where knowledge and skills come into play. You gather knowledge, you transform them into skills. Now, those skills are what we use. Why I talked about impact is the result of action worked out from skills. You can't create necessary impact without good knowledge and skill to back up what you have in mind. I cannot talk about impact and skills if I don't have an idea of what we need now, and if I haven't come to understand that we are not creating enough impact in the first place. So the skill has a lot to do with creating impact, and how you get the skill depends on how much knowledge you are open to or you've been able to access. So these are probably a better explanation to the broad that I gave before. So I believe that answers the question.
Of course, you have a lot to share with us, and we would want you to go ahead and elaborate on the premise with more examples on why impact is so important, even more than knowledge or skills.
Okay, let's take for example, for instance, we're talking about education. Education is one of the most important areas we need to address for our youths now in order to get the best possible future. Now, talking about education, the educational system and standard in Africa is not yet it. Speaking from my experience as a Nigerian, now we need a better structure. We need a better structure. We need to use the knowledge we have. Now, we have youths that have experienced the old educational system and they know that it's not working out very well. I'm not an educationist, but yes, I've been through the school system. I know where I was pained and I know where I actually felt joy in going. So we need youths that understand this and that are interested in the educational sector to actually create impact with their knowledge. Now, that's an example. You start changing the system because you understand the system and you've experienced the system. As an environmentalist, someone who is passionate about environmental sustainability, I am the founder of Evo 3D, a young startup. Now, I decided to go into waste management with that startup, trying to bridge the gap or transform waste into something of value for educational purposes. Now, this was built out of passion and understanding that the waste affects our environment, and at the end of the day, if our environment is not comfortable or conducive enough, learning will become a problem. So we started from tertiary institutions. So you see where the education and impact comes into play. We first of all understood the problem. We first of all gained knowledge about the problem and how to build solutions around it. Then we decided to use what we know to build a system or a process to solve these problems. So these are what youths are meant to be doing now in order to build a future, a better future for us.
You're absolutely right when you say that there is some sort of a gap in our education system. You have been discussing your personal experience, but yes, we as students in India also feel that there is some sort of a gap where we are not taught practically and not taught how to implement that education. We're just taught to give examinations. And that has to be changed. Very well said. Well, we learned the idea of making best from the waste when we were young, and we were taught to bring all the waste materials from our home, whether it's newspaper, broken crockery, or whatever, and just make it into some beautiful masterpiece. That's what is done in the rock garden of Chandigarh as well, where the artist very beautifully picked up rock pieces, tile pieces, and stuff like that, which was waste, to make such a beautiful garden, which is now one of the most famous tourism spots in Chandigarh. So that's a very beautiful vision. We would like to know more as to how you are implementing the waste management plan that you have started working on.
Okay, thank you so much for asking about my waste management plan, Evo 3D to be precise. Uh, the Evo 3D team is mainly an engineering and artistic team. So we were focused on the future of manufacturing, which is 3D printing. So we're looking at the possibility of using, in fact, we've already started working towards it, using waste plastic materials for now, just plastics, to create 3D filaments that will be used in schools for student projects so that prototyping, innovations, and other products of artistic value will be easily created by students, especially in their final year projects that is a necessity for them to actually graduate from school, so that we get more innovations coming out of Africa, more innovations that will impact our society as cheaply and affordable as possible. At the same time, curbing environmental wastes from the society. That means we are using something that was of no use to us. Now we're creating a lot of value as much as using it to educate the future. So that is what we do at Evo 3D. For now, we're focused on plastics, and we've started working on the most neglected form of plastics, the waste sachets in Nigeria, because literally no recycling company looks at it because it seems to not be so um, valuable in the market. But then we're trying to create value from it by being artistic in our innovations.
Emmanuel, I agree with you on that, and I think most of our viewers will also agree on that. Moving on, I'd like to talk about the idea behind knowledge, and you know, indeed, impact is more important and more powerful than having knowledge, because not impact is all about using the knowledge that you have to do something. So, in that context, I'd like to ask you on the next premise, which is what are we doing with the knowledge that we have, and versus again as against what we ought to be doing. What do you think, and what is the experience from your country in Nigeria? What do you think is happening, and what do you think ought to happen?
Okay, another good thing about the Evo 3D process is it involves youths, in the sense that the youths get to bring or keep their waste plastics, which means it no longer gets to the environment. It's now managed properly by individuals. They keep these waste plastics and exchange them for incentives in the form of a cheaper product prototype, because we aim at having 3D printing hubs in all universities where engineering innovations or engineering is studied. So uh, we're looking at impacting directly from the consumer level, not just going out into the environment and picking already littered waste. We're looking at curbing waste directly from consumer, from the household, especially youths, so that by the time they grow, they will get used to keeping these waste and disposing them properly, or creating value from them instead of dumping the waste like the others already do. So that's it. Okay, thank you for that question. And like I've always been sincere, I'll be sincere in my answer here. In my country, Nigeria, we have a lot of learned people. Per se, we have a lot of educated people. But then what happens? People who claim to be educated only showcase their education when someone must have gone wrong. They we tend to use intimidation education as a show of wit and intimidation in this area, instead of using the education to create opportunities that would cause these mistakes not to happen. Now, we wait to use our education to cast blame on the government instead of proffer solutions to the government. We are more focused on using our education to prove that people are wrong instead of showing how people can be right. So that is what I am focused on: impact. It is not about gathering knowledge. You cannot be a, a graphic designer, a professional graphic designer, instead of showing others, younger ones, how to actually gain that skill and use that skill to gain global recognition, to help build brands. You're actually waiting for them to come out and make mistakes in public. Then you showcase your wits as a professional and tell them where they must have got everything wrong. That is the problem. That's what we're not getting right. We're using our education wrongly. We should be using it to solve problems before they become a pain in the neck. So that's basically my point about impact beyond education, beyond knowledge and skills. Use the skills to solve future problems. The foresight create solutions before they are even needed. So that's my answer to that question. For example, again, the educational sector in this part of the world, you get to see where the lecturers and your teachers want to prove to you that they know more than you do, instead of actually helping you become better than them, because that's how the change should be. The future should be better than the past, and so on and so on. So but here we want to remain kings in the same old, and we don't want to groom a new heir to build a stronger and better kingdom. So that is one way we are getting a lot of things wrong, and the youths are taking up this same mentality. That means we're definitely going to stay the same if we don't change our approach to things.
Absolutely, Emmanuel. I think I agree with you on the point that you made, and the insights you've given about how it is in Nigeria is very interesting, and I think all of yours will understand the situation. And then it shows that there's a lot of similarity between our country and yours when it comes to education. In this context, our friend Lavpreet will ask you the next question. Over to you, Lavpreet.
You said that there's a gap between education and impact. A very prominent example here in India is the profession of engineering. Students are taking up engineering as their education, in higher education mostly, just because it is one of the trends in India. And from the last few years, most students are doing engineering. But after graduating from colleges, they are either not having sufficient skills to work in the marketplace, or the second thing is that they were actually wishing to do something else. They were capable journalists, lawyers, entrepreneurs who just got into engineering and ruined 4 years of their life. There's a problem where there's no connection between the classroom and what the market demands. We are still studying microprocessor and microcontroller 8085 and 8051, while right now it's some other dimension of microprocessors and controllers going on. We have to be studying what's new and not what was 10 years ago. The books are not revised. We are studying the same books which a 10-year-old batch studied in engineering, especially, I feel. And there's an issue with the skills as well. We're not having enough skills. On the name of programming languages, we just learn programming languages to add them to our LinkedIn profile or maybe to our resume. But we don't know how to implement them in reality, how to use them. Also, there's a lack of holistic education, I feel. People are just studying to clear the examinations and get their degrees, but after graduation, they are sitting unemployed Also, they don't have any clear skill set, they don't have any aim, most importantly. And even if someone is having the required skills to build something up, then the person is not thinking holistically. They are remaking all the old models. That's what is the problem. So, what's your take on creating entrepreneurs and how to identify the impact areas and then build the ideas one has? What would you say about this? How can people and especially youth be aligned towards their goals? How can they implement the education that they are having, and also how we can build new ideas? Personally speaking, even in my college, most of my friends are the people who are not willing to do engineering, but they are still doing it. And I personally feel that we are degrading the quality of engineers that we are producing. All the dams and bridges are breaking down. We have engineers who are sitting unemployed. People are laughing on them. They are being mocked. And then there are engineers who are going for all sorts of competitive exams, are going into banks, are going into teaching a profession, etc. They're not doing what they must be doing, probably. And that clearly shows that there's definitely a gap between our education and our impact. And students do not have an aim of impacting the world. They feel that if I do something, how will that change the world? Come on. So that thinking has to be changed, I feel. That's very true. So this undecided youth problem is a global problem. It's not just a problem in one nation, and we can expect a lot to happen if if we are going to continue, like this. The thing is that all of us need to decide whatever career we choose, whatever we are capable of. It's possible, actually possible, to change the world by music. Also, it's actually possible to change the world if you are a content developer. With every single profession that you opt for, you can actually bring about volumes of change. It's just that you need to believe in yourself. You need to have this aim in your mind that I'm not living just for the sake of me, or for the sake of my family, or for the sake of my society, but I'm living for the sake of this world. And yes, we all need to put in this effort of saving the environment, conserving the environment, changing the paradigms of the society which is prevalent right now. And with every small action that we do, at least our motive should be to bring a big change. And if we have that motive of bringing 100% change, maybe we can bring 40% for the first time. The next time, maybe we bring 60%. The next time, maybe 80. And one day, we'll be able to bring 100% positive change, which we want to do. We are all very full of energy. We are all energetic. We are all full of caliber. We are all full of talent. No one of us is waste. It's just that we need to carve out the best out of us. Very well said, Emil. Very well.
Emmanuel, I agree with you when you say that there should be a clear-cut mindset, and we have to explore a lot of other options and not just restrict ourselves to what we know or what we are told to do. In that context, when you say that we have to go beyond this existing paradigms, which is get a degree, go for a job, or try to it's a one-dimensional aspect that people are going for, be it in India, be it in Nigeria, be it in most of the developing countries. And it is essential, as you say, that we have to go beyond this, explore the bigger picture, and we have to learn a lot of subjects and create a homegrown skill set. In that context, I'll tell you one thing that is there in India that used to be there, but sadly after the independence and after in the quest for modernity, that thing has taken a backseat, and that is the system called the Gurukula system, which used to be this system, education system in India before the Macaulay education, which was the schooling, as we all know, the current schooling and the college system came to be. In that system, we used to have a certain set of skills imparted, and the person would have his absolute choice to learn whatever he would want to after achieving a certain age, and then he would go on to into that field, and he had absolute freedom, and there was no compulsion for him to follow whatever his father would do or his grandfather would do. So there used to be absolute flexibility in whatever occupation one would take and whatever field one would want to go in and create a new thing out of it. So there used to be this kind of a system in India, and I think we have to, in India, look back at it and see how we can revive it in that context.
this particular system needs revival and a touch of innovation, so that the skills that the youth will be learning will be skills that are of the now and skills that will bring about skills of the future. But then they should have the freedom or free will, do what they want, not because they are told to do that or because every other person is doing it, but because they want to do it. So the system should be back. It should be brought back.
And Emmanuel, I'd like to give you a certain instance. What happened in India recently was that there was a law that was enacted, all right. So that law had a lot of legal understanding that many commoners or the laymen would not understand. So what they had to do was they had to research a law, no, a very superficial research was done, and that too by most of the media people, where the legal aspect was not covered properly, and it was all a mess. So what happened was people who were understanding law are not lawyers and who had a thorough understanding of the law and how the system should work were going and researching in depth and bringing out the facts onto the table and say that hey, look at this, what you've reported or what you've quoted is wrong. There's a lot of other aspects to it, and therefore this issue had brought out a very important, it was a turning point in India so far, so to say, that legal awareness, awareness about law, how the law works, how the systems are there, are essential. And people are trying to do that on their own, out of their own experiences regarding how law is and what is the lack of knowledge of law, so to say. So in that context, I'd like to ask you, how do you think we can bridge the gap between you're sitting in Nigeria and I'm sitting in India, so we are still able to connect. But what do you think at the lower level? How do you think can we can bring in more impact in terms of let's say law or journalism or any area of your choice? So what do you think is very essential at this juncture when we talk about impact? It's just knowledge, and we have talked about all these issues, but at the lower level, we have people coming out, and what is your advice to them when it comes to planning about something and going for the in full steam about it? What is your advice to those who want to bring change in general on not only social but other aspects as well? So one can be a lawyer, one can be a lot of other things, but he has to have that understanding what to do. How can you create a better impact? So what would be your 3-point advice, if I may say so? What is your 3-point advice?
Okay, the advice I would like to give to every youth out there, it doesn't matter what particular country, like you mentioned, is the advice I give to myself. Do what you do because you know it's going to better the world you want to live in. And remember that you can't do it alone, so look for people who are like-minded and connect to them. You don't build a space shuttle by knowing a taxi driver. Yes, a taxi driver will get you from one destination on land to another, but you need to know an aeronautic engineer to help you with the space shuttle. You need to know a financial advisor to help you with the capital part of it. So we need to expand our network, our reach. My advice is get connected with like-minded youths. Stay focused on what you want to achieve. Don't be derailed by what people say or that you might be having. We all have our own failures. Yes, we fail. Even the best of us do. But what makes us the best is the fact that we keep on doing what we do the best possible way we can at every point in our lives. So just keep doing what you do and keep connecting with people who have the same mind as you are, and As we keep doing this, we'll keep building and influencing others to join. Our future will end up becoming a better one. If we stand alone, we can't survive it. We can't change nothing. But if we stand together, we can do everything. So, thank you for having me. It's a very great pleasure to be on the program, to be on this program. I would like to come on here some other time, but for now, we'll say bye. So, thank you very much. Bye bye.
We were in conversation with Emmanuel Nwanja, who is a youth leader from Nigeria. You have talked so beautifully about how impact is more important than knowledge and skills, and I really hope all of us will be benefited from this. We cannot always build the future for our youth, but we can always build our youth for the future. And always remember, you are never too young to change the world. At least the youth leaders are proving this to us. Just like the enlightened Swami Vivekananda said, arise, awake, and stop not until the goal is achieved. Thank you so much for giving in your valuable inputs and time, Emmanuel. And we really hope that the youth across the globe, not just India or Nigeria, but across the globe, is inspired from your story. It's indeed a pleasure to be with you, and we hope that you can definitely bring about many more good changes in the society. Thank you so much for joining, everyone. This is your host, Lovepreet Kaur, signing off.